Welcome back to another episode of the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. I'm here joined with, every single week, Justin Stewart, of course, but also Great Britain team player Nick Ward, played for the Washington Nationals and just got signed with the Philadelphia Phillies as well. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Justin, how's your day been too?
It's been good. Thanks for asking. So, otherwise, it's been pretty mundane, though. I can't complain.
Yeah. How was the first week of spring training going so far for you, Nick?
Well, I had 2 weeks of spring training before the World Baseball Classic, and then this, I guess, last week and a half since I got back. But everything's been going really well. I've had a little bit of a lull after getting back from the World Baseball Classic, but it is what it is. Got a long season coming up, so. But everything's been going pretty well.
Yeah, that's good. And just to get right into things, I do want to ask. So you were on the Wild Things last year. You get your contract blocked by the Phillies, and you're on Team Great Britain. How did it come about? How did you qualify to be on Team Great Britain? And yeah, how did everything work out like that?
Yeah, so I was playing for the Wild Things in 2021, and I was talking to one of my friends who played for Team Brazil. And he was like, dude, if you ever get a chance to do something like that, you have to do it. It just means so much more to represent your family on a baseball field. So then my mom was born in England, and my grandparents were born and raised there. Pretty much my whole mom's family is still there, besides her brother and sister. So I just reached out to the British Baseball Federation asking if I qualified, and was just interested if they had room on the team for another guy. And then we just started the conversation that way, and then the next year ended up playing in the World Baseball Classic qualifier this past September. And then the roster was a little different for the actual World Baseball Classic, but luckily I was lucky enough to have my name put on that roster as well, and got to have the experience of a lifetime.
Well, speaking about that, though, what was that experience like? Because you're playing against guys that play international leagues, but not only that, but you're also playing against the best players in all of baseball, scattered across a bunch of different teams. Can you just talk to me about what that experience was like?
Yeah, so at first it was pretty jaw-dropping and kind of unbelievable. I was playing first base in that tournament, and just looking at home plate, every pitch is like, wow, there's Mookie Betts. Holy cow, there's Mike Trout. Oh my gosh, there's JT Realmuto. There's Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, all these best players in the world. Specifically against our first game against the USA. It was jaw-dropping at first, but then the game starts and you get in the flow of it, and you realize that it's the same game. No matter who you're playing against, they still have to throw strikes, we still have to hit it, and vice versa. Right? So, and it also kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to how good we actually were, because we surprised a lot of people. We played the U.S. to a 6-2 game, and if it wasn't for a couple defensive mistakes that we made, or a pitch here or there, and then Kyle Schwarber's big 3-run home run, that's a 1-run ball game. Mm-hmm. So, and then the Canada game was what it was, but and it also proved to myself that I can play with the best in the world.
Yeah, and speaking of the team in that first game, obviously Trace Thompson leads off the game with that big home run to start the game. I saw the celebration too with the crown and stuff like that. What went into the crown and stuff, and also what was the reaction from the dugout whenever he hit that home run? What was it like?
So somebody on our team just had a crown and that little, I guess, cape, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had a plastic sword that we would knight you with. So that was pretty cool. I'm not exactly sure who had it, but that was pretty fun. only in the World Baseball Classic are things like that like acceptable, right? Like you wouldn't see that in a regular major league game. But yeah, when Trace, I think Trace was the 3 hitter or 4 hitter at that game, or no, he was a 2 hitter. When he hit that home run, it was kind of like, wow, holy cow! Like we're winning, we're beating the U.S. right now. Like they obviously they hadn't had a chance to hit, but it's like, man, like this is we have a chance. And that kind of reminded us all like, we are good enough to do this. Like, yeah, Trace is a big leaguer, and he's been in the big leagues for a few years now, so he's used to that sort of environment. And a lot of us were not. But him hitting that home run, kind of like leading us down that path, starting off those 4 games with a bang, quite literally, that kind of settled our nerves a little bit.
So you talked about like representing your country, like Great Britain, like your mom's side of the family. I've heard that a lot throughout the tournament about the importance of representing your country and how it's like so significant. For you personally, what did it mean for you to represent Great Britain, not only for your mom, but for like that side of the entire family?
Yeah, so without my grandfather and grandmother moving their family over here, I don't exist, right? So yeah, he came here for work when my mom was about 3 years old, I think, in like 1960 or 1965, something like that. And they've been here ever since. And my grandparents have been like some of my biggest fans and biggest supporters throughout my college baseball career and especially my professional baseball career. So even when I was in Australia this past year, my grandfather wouldn't wake up at 3 a.m. to watch our games, but he would wake up early and see the highlights, and was not living and dying by it, but he was very, very excited to look up how we did. And when I told him that I was when I signed with the Phillies, he was so incredibly happy for me. It's so proud. And the same look on his face came about when I told him that I was going to be on the Great Britain team. So getting to represent like that side of my family, and they might not have been the ones who introduced me to baseball, but getting to represent them on the national stage, especially with the relationship I have with my grandfather, it means everything to me.
And speaking of that Australian tournament too, you guys won that tournament or league. You guys won that, right?
Yeah, we did.
How did it feel to be able to win that? And what was your grandfather's reaction like when you guys won that and you guys took home the gold?
So, well, I don't know if he might have been awake for that game, or at least the tail end of it. But, yeah, I think in the city of Adelaide, they hadn't won the Claxton Shield, which is the trophy or the final series in the Australian Baseball League. So they hadn't won a Claxton Shield in like 43 years. So I think that's right. Yeah, 43 years. And we broke a really long drought. So it meant a lot to all of us that like we were able to win, especially the imported guys. But we felt how much it meant to everybody else as well. Like on our coaching staff, there were players coaches that had played for Adelaide in the 80s and 90s who never got to win the championship. And like they're very, very emotional after the win. And we have players on our team who have played in that league for years and never won anything. So you could tell how much this, like that moment meant to a lot of people. And like, that was incredibly special to be able to break that drought and bring a championship to that city, but also like do it with the people that we did it with.
Are there like any differences as far as like playing baseball in the States as opposed to like internationally, like as far as like maybe pitching styles, just atmosphere, fan atmosphere, anything of that nature? Do you notice any differences or not so much?
There are some. I think like a lot of the way that pitchers pitch can vary from depending on where they're from and what they're brought up, like being raised to do and what they're naturally good at. Like a lot of Asian pitchers throw pretty hard, but they also have a split finger, so it just drops, right? And there's a few American guys that are able to throw that pitch, or Latin guys that are able to throw that pitch, but you see it a lot in with the Asian guys. And the Asian guys, their ball just spins different because I guess there's something called like vertical axis and spin efficiency. And the guys that like the Asian guys have very, very good spin efficiency. They're taught from a very young age how to throw a baseball like that. So there's a little bit of a difference there, I think. Atmosphere wise, like, yeah, there's a difference. Like winter ball in like the Latin countries, which I haven't gotten the chance to do yet. I've heard it's like a party in the stands. And like when we played Mexico, that's what it felt like. Like there was a party in the stands. The Mexican fans were loud, and I got to give it to them. That was pretty cool. In Australia, like baseball's still growing, and it's growing pretty fast. So it's taken a little while for people to catch on with what baseball's all about. But as the season goes on, like they show up. They showed out for us during the finals, and that was pretty cool. But other than that, I think that it's pretty much the same game.
Speaking of baseball growing, though, Great Britain, you guys playing in this tournament, how important is that for baseball? Not just like for people who have lineage in Great Britain, for people who are actually in Great Britain who now want to play baseball. How important was it for you guys to play in the World Baseball Classic for the country?
Yeah, even without the success that we had already won, right? Because, like you said, like typically Great Britain, England, that region of the world is not a baseball place, stereotypically, right? But just like Australia, baseball is growing. Maybe at a little bit slower of a pace, but it's still growing, right? So in that sense, like you always want to leave something better than you found it. And like at least when I joined the team, obviously the goal was to make it to the World Baseball Classic for us. But there's a ripple down effect that we won't be able to see for years and years to come. And hopefully, like some kids who are 4, 5, 6, and however old, right, are saying like, hey, there's a team with guys whose family, or they might have been born here or whose families are from here that played on an international stage as big as that one. Like, I want to do that too. And like, hopefully that's what we did. Hopefully that's what those kids saw. And I feel like we represented Great Britain very, very well, and we handled ourselves very well, and we played very, very well. So hopefully those kids that were watching and staying up very late throughout the night in England were at least a little bit inspired by what we did.
Yeah, so and I do want to. Oh yeah, go ahead, Justin. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you personally, how did you get involved with baseball?
So baseball was always my dad's favorite sport. So he was a college soccer player, but his favorite was always baseball. And when I was little, he would take me out on the driveway and roll me a big wiffle ball. and he would give me like a small wiffle ball bat, and I would try and I would have to hit it off the ground, and I would play catch with him in the yard. Like I'm 27 now, and I still play catch with him in the backyard. So it was really my dad who like showed me what baseball was, and we would watch the Phillies game every summer night together. Just that, yeah, it was he was the one who showed it to me.
Yeah, and I do want to ask, like, this is just like a regular kind of like almost like an icebreaker question. So for me, I played high school baseball, not at an incredibly high level, but like decently high. And there was one thing that always was a pet peeve of mine. It was like when people would dig their foot into the ground before you like bat up, and the batter's box would be unlevel. Do you have any pet peeves like that, or any pet peeves that get you that people do on the diamond?
Hmm. That's a tough one. I don't think I really do. Yeah, I normally I'm just like kind of I'm pretty like laser focused in that I don't really pay attention to what anybody else is really doing except the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. No, I don't think I really do, to be honest.
Yeah. No, but I do want to go back to the games though and playing, and I just want to ask like what your experience was like adjusting from playing at Frontier League baseball to Australia, and then going from Australia to facing Hall of Famer like Adam Wainwright, or someone who throws like upper 90s and David Bednar. Like, how was it like adjusting to them, and what was it like facing all stars like that?
Well, it's the same game, right? It's the same game. Like guys have different skills, right? Like David Bednar throws 96 to 98 miles an hour, and he has a really good splitter, right? And Wainwright doesn't throw as hard as he used to throw, but he's a really good pitcher, right? So he knows how to get you out in different ways, regardless if he doesn't have that same fastball velocity that he used to, right? So in that, it's still the same game, but like from Frontier League to Australia was a relatively similar competition level, but obviously it's a huge step up to go play against like the best major leaguers in the world. So yeah, like your awareness is heightened, your adrenaline's all over the place. So everything moves a little bit faster and speed the game's a little bit faster. But I don't really think I had too much of an issue adjusting once I realized that, yeah, the stadium's a little bit bigger. The players against it that we're playing against are a lot better than what we're used to. And there's a lot more people in the stands watching. But it's still 90 feet to first base, and it's still 60 feet, 6 inches to that pitcher's mound.
Mm-hmm.
Following up on that, though, are there like any pregame routines, any habits you do that have kind of become superstitious isn't the right word, but just something that you do every day as far as things you go?
Yeah, so I get dressed the same way. Like I wear a pair of like compression shorts and leggings and high socks, and I have to put my left sock on before my right sock, but I have to put my right shoe on before my left shoe. And then I'll always stretch the same way. It obviously depends on how my body feels. I might do a little bit more, but I always run 2 sprints, and then I pray before every game. And and I talked to my grandfather who passed away when I was in 7th grade, and then my college roommate who passed away in 2019. So, and I always get out on the field, or try and get out on the field at the same time. Sometimes you can't do that, but I try and have enough time just so I can stretch, and then I have the same routine when I go up to the plate every time. It's just so my mind can be at ease. So, but now with the pitch clock, I have to adjust it a little bit.
Sorry for your losses, by the way.
No, thank you. It's been a few years, but it's just like anybody else's loss. They never. Some days are harder than others.
I do want to ask that you mentioned your faith too, and as a Christian myself, it's a big part of my life as well. I try to pray before everything I do as well. So I do want to ask, how important is your faith to you? And was there a certain time where you knew, hey, this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to follow Jesus. Was there like a certain point in your life?
There was actually. So it was. I was raised Roman Catholic, and my dad's goal for raising me and my two sisters Catholic was not to have us follow the Roman Catholic Church, like to a T, right? It was just to show us the way that there is a way to follow God and have God in your life if we chose to do so, right? And obviously, like when a lot of people go to college, they like start thinking a little bit differently. They start having their own ideas, right? And I went through that and kind of questioned a lot. But then when my friend passed away in February of 2019, the only thing that I knew to do was pray for him and his family. And that was the only thing that like brought me a sense of peace. So that was, I've said it to a lot of people, like that was like my coming to Jesus moment, where like I felt like this huge like weight lifted off of my shoulders. Was like, man, like this, like if there isn't a God, then I have no explanation for why I feel the way that I feel right now. So to me, like there had to have been somebody or a higher power that was able to like take the stress off of me that I was carrying after that horrible moment in my life. So that was a huge I shouldn't say transformation, but that's probably not the right word, but I think you get what I'm getting at.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that. 'Cause it can't be easy to share it sometimes, but at the same time, it's part of your testimony as well. So it's probably not too hard for you, actually.
Yeah, obviously, it's a terrible story,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a terrible thing to have. I would, if anybody else who's listening has gone through something like that, I know exactly how you're feeling, and but for me, it was turning to God, and I'm not ashamed in any stretch of the imagination to say that I'm a believer and I'm a follower.
Do not be ashamed of the gospel. That's what it says. So, thank you for your boldness and continue to do that too as well. And I do want to say too, like it's like you put God in the center of your life instead of yourself in the center at that moment. And I do want to ask, with a busy schedule like that, how is it still following your faith? Like, can it be tough sometimes being as busy as you are to try to keep God in that center and in that focus?
For sure. I think as humans, it's very easy to lose focus of what's truly important, mm-hmm. right? Especially when you have all these external factors pulling you one way, pulling you another. Especially, like for me, that's why having a routine is so important. So important. Like I wake up at the same time every day. I don't eat the same thing for breakfast every day, but I'm getting to the ballpark at the same time every day. I'm doing everything at the same time. So I know I have time for the things that like stuff's going to come up and I'm going to have to adjust, but at least I know I'm getting in what I have to get in. And with the busy schedule, like, yeah, I think it's still easy to lose sight of what's truly important though. So, but I think that goes along with like stuff happens sometimes, but as long as you have the presence of mind to bring yourself back to the focus and point the focus where it needs to be, I think that's what matters too.
Yeah, I think you really touched upon like what I was about to ask you in a lot of ways though, but I was going to ask, like, what's the most challenging aspect of being a baseball player? Obviously, it's something you enjoy doing very much though, but you just talk to me about like maybe like whether it's like daily routines, just like maybe like in a bit of a funk at the plate. Can you talk to me about maybe some of the challenging things of being a baseball player?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, in the minor leagues, we play 140 games over 155 to 160 days, right? So obviously, the physical part of it is difficult, and it's obviously really hard to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, right? But once you get to professional baseball, everybody's really good. So that's just how it is. But the biggest piece of it is the mental side, because it's so much more of a mental grind than it is a physical one. Because I was actually talking to one of our hitting coordinators about this today, and human nature is like, if anybody fails at anything more than 30% of the time, human nature is to say we don't want to do it anymore, because putting in the work to not see any results it's not rewarding, and I'm not getting anything out of it, right? And that's failing at a 30% clip. But baseball players, if you fail at a 70% clip, you're one of the best in the world, right? So getting over the fact that you are going to fail is the hardest thing, because and especially hitting, like, you could do everything right. You could hit a ball right on the screws, but it's right at somebody, and you're still out. The stat sheet and baseball says that you failed, right? But you did everything right, and that's unfortunately the crappy part about the game that I play. And the hardest part is mentally overcoming all that.
Well, following up on that though, so I don't know like what you did during COVID, but like when that first happened, just were you able to still play, and like what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so right when COVID hit and like the world just shut down, right? I got released by the Oakland Athletics, and then I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, I knew I still wanted to play, and that's when the Wild Things reached out to me, and that's also when we thought that the world was only going to be shut down for 2 weeks. So I signed with them, and then like, world's going bananas, and we're all sitting at home. And but I actually did end up getting to play a little bit of baseball. So in Washington, we had like a pod league where the Wild Things employed 2 teams, and then there was 2 other teams from the Black Sox baseball organization, where those guys like pay to play, and they travel all around trying to earn a professional contract. So there's 4 teams. We played out there for, I don't know, probably like 5-6 weeks maybe. And so I got to play some baseball. So that at that point, any baseball was good baseball. Since not a lot of people had the opportunity, and a lot of people were just sitting at home.
Yeah, I do want to say I saw a quote from your coach, Coach Tom from the Wild Things. He said, "Whenever you get the chance, that's what you can do when you get the chance out there." Do you think like Westchester gave you that chance to be able to fulfill your full potential in college?
I do, yeah. So our head coach, who is no longer at Westchester, he's moved on to a different school, but he just let me be who I was. He wasn't trying to make me into something that he thought that I could be. Or that he wanted me to be, right? I was very grateful that he let me be me. And I had learned a ton from my 1 year at VCU, getting to play with some really incredible players, with some really good coaches. And I don't think I'm where I'm at now without that 1 year that I spent there. But that being said, I'm definitely not where I'm at now without the 3 years that I spent at Westchester. And like the VCU was like the groundwork, but I still needed to play really well at Westchester and we did a lot of winning when I was in Westchester. Obviously, it wasn't just me. We had great teams, a lot of really, really good guys. But yeah, our coaching staff just kind of, there were still things that I needed to work on, and they're like everybody, there always will be, right? But he just let me be who I was, and he didn't let me figure it out on my own, but it was kind of like if I was doing my work, and the same thing rang true for every player. It was like if you were getting what you needed to get done, doing everything were supposed to do in the classroom, there wasn't a whole lot of hands-on from him, which was great.
Nice. I do want to ask you though. So we kind of asked you earlier about some of the players you saw at the World Baseball Classic. So I don't want to focus on that though, but I do want to focus on, like, as far as your college and high school, and even before that experience, who was the best player you've ever seen play live in person? Non-MLB players or non-professional.
So besides World Baseball Classic, you said?
Yeah, just anyone in the MLB currently. Yeah.
Well, I would say Chas McCormick. I played against him in high school and college, and he's an awesome guy. He's an awesome guy. So we now work out at the same facility back home. And another one is I've worked out with him a lot the past few years. Is Joey Wendell with the Miami Marlins. So I got to see him. We were workout partners for 4 years or so in the off season, and obviously I wasn't here last off season, so he he had to find somebody else to work out with. But yeah, I think those two guys are one's an infielder, obviously, and Joey, and Chaz is obviously an outfielder. So guys that I never played with Joey or against Joey, but I played against Chaz, and Chaz was a problem. I can definitely say that. He was whenever he came up, it was like, all right, here he goes. He's gonna get another hit. That dude can roam around the outfield. He's pretty dang good.
Yeah, I saw him play last year up in Cleveland, and it's insane. Like, he could go inside out on a pitch inside. He could hit the ball anywhere. Like, I saw him hit this opposite field bomb in Cleveland last year, and it's good to see it. How's it feel to get to see him, excel at the next level?
It's great because he came from a rival school of ours, right? Obviously, Chaz, he's the all-time PSAC hits leader. He's got like 307, something like that, if my memory serves me correctly. But he's a really good dude, and he's a really good baseball player. But it also kind of just says, like, excuse me. It also kind of says, like, you can make it to the highest level from Division II baseball. Right? And Joey Wendell's the same thing. Like, he is playing in the big leagues now. It's like it's like fourth or fifth year in the big leagues. And he, like, Chaz was a star at Millersville. Joey was obviously a star at Westchester. But you can get there from Division II, not just Division I.
Yeah, and that's like, my friend he played for Waynesburg, which is around our area, and he had a teammate who was at Waynesburg and ended up getting drafted in the third round. His name's Mason Miller from the Athletics. He got drafted a couple years ago. Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, as long as you get the time to play out on the field and, like, get your reps, and anything's possible.
Yeah, the league finds talent. Doesn't matter where you are. Mm-hmm. They'll find you. If you put up numbers and your team wins, and, like, they will find you. It doesn't matter whether it's Division I, Division II, Division III, junior college, NAIA school. Any opportunity to play is a good opportunity to play.
Yeah, and I do. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Justin. You're good.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, you've obviously been doing a lot here these recent weeks. just looking ahead to this year, are there any personal goals? Obviously, you want to win games. That's number one. But are there any personal goals for you that you want to set out to accomplish this season?
Well, I think that's yeah, there are. I haven't really like quantified them. I think it was hard for me to have. Like, I guess I went into my Wild Things season this past year wanting to hit over 300 and hit more than 10 home runs. I think it would be a little bit silly to be like, all right, I have to hit 300. I have to hit 300 because I'm really not in control of whether I get a hit or not. And a lot of the goals that I have are like a lot of the things are not in my control, right? So just keeping it as simple as possible. Like I would still like to hit 10 home runs or more this year, steal at least 20 bases, and just play good defense wherever they put me on the field. But the biggest piece is just like being the same guy every day. Obviously I want to play in the big leagues too. But be the same guy every day and be the best 1/9 of the equation that I can be every single day. And if I do that, I think my numbers will be all right.
I do want to ask too, going back to VCU, you played with a player that made the show. I do want to ask, I think his name was Vimel Machine too. Did you get to play with him, and like how was it watching him play if you did?
Yeah, so he was a senior when I was a freshman. Mm-hmm. And he was our shortstop, and so I took ground balls and hit with him every day. Right? So but you could tell like he was on a different level than the rest of the team was. And like it wasn't like he definitely didn't act like it either. It was like he was just really, really good. Right. So he ended up getting drafted in the 10th round by the Cubs and then made his big league debut with the Athletics in 2021, I believe. And then so we were actually with the Ace together at the same time in 2020, but never really crossed paths. And then he's actually with the Phillies now. So I've gotten to see him a few times. Got to talk to him, which has been really cool. But yeah, it's been really cool to see the success that he's had over the last few years.
That's awesome. Like you get to see him again too. Like when he saw you, what was his reaction like? Like was he aware of like the strides you were making in baseball?
I think he was. He had known that I had gotten drafted. He'd known that I had gotten released. I hadn't talked to him too much since he left VCU and I left VCU. But yeah, I think we both knew that we were going to be Phillies, and then it was going to be. We kind of just left it until we saw each other at spring training. So it was pretty cool. Like I was already sitting on the bus, and he comes on the bus, and just we ended up having a lot like lockers right next to each other. So it was pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, and I do want to go back to just like your advice to people that were in your spot, or like just so like like as you get older, baseball gets harder, it becomes more of a mental game, and you mentioned that like people start guessing pitches as you start seeing curveballs instead of just like sitting on fastball, stuff like that, or there's stuff you can't control in the game. What is your advice to people that might be all over the place in their heads whenever they're struggling in baseball, and what's your advice to them?
Keep it as simple as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. Right. Like there are certain times when you're hitting, like you can sit on a certain pitch, right? But for the most part, if you are not ready for the fastball and you get a fastball, you are not going to be able to hit it. Mm-hmm. But you always really need to be ready for that fastball. But yeah, I think keeping it as simple as you possibly can, because like anything else, it's very easy for it to become a paralysis by analysis type situation, where you're thinking about too many different things and you're not thinking about what's truly important. So, and then after that, right, it's just like never give up, because you really have no idea what can happen. It's like put the time in, weight room, batting cage, practice field, whatever it is. Put the work in, and then your preparation will take care of all the game day jitters, whatever it might be, and then just go play.
Fair enough. I do want to ask you though, on the flip side, what's the best piece of advice someone's given you, whether it's just been personal or on a professional level?
I think it probably was to never give up. It's like, I think at the time, hey man, just go play, just be yourself. It's more than enough. Like my manager from the winter in Australia said that to me all the time. It's like, hey, just be yourself. Like it's more than good enough. Just be you, right? And my manager from Washington, Tom Bake, said, you should never ever give up until it's something that you just do not want for yourself anymore, because you truly don't know what can happen. If there's a quote, it's like what if it could turn out better than you ever imagined? Right, so it's like leaving no stone unturned. It's like never give up, try your best always, and then just go be yourself after that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing the advice you heard, and the best advice you can give as well. We appreciate it.
Of course, not a problem.
Yeah, but anyways, I think that's probably a great closing point just to end on that. And thank you so much again for joining us, Nick.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but anyways, Justin, thank you as always as well for being my podcast buddy. And and for everyone out there watching, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast at. I'm Antonio Rossetti. This is Justin Stewart. Thank you guys so much for watching.